The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to those expressing them and do not necessarily reflect the OSIP Foundation Incorporated or any other group or individual. This podcast may contain dialogue or subject material that could be considered for mature audiences only. All aspects of How You Play the Game and the OSIP Foundation Incorporated are protected by copyright and other state and federal intellectual property laws. Unauthorized use without the express written consent of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated is strictly prohibited. If you're interested in sponsoring How You Play the Game, please email us at podcast@osipfoundation.org. Your sponsorship may be tax deductible. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of How You Play the Game, the official podcast of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated. Yours truly, Jack Burr, along with you as we talk about what's going on as far as the world of sportsmanship is concerned. This is the first episode of the month of October. Hard to believe it's October. I know I say that every single episode, but yeah, time is flying. The year is 2025. Glad that you can be with us. As always, check us out online at osipfoundation.org. If you'd like to contact the show, please use the email address podcast@osipfoundation.org. And on social media, we're at facebook.com/osipfoundation, X and Instagram at osipfoundation, hashtag How You Play the Game. So we just had the Ryder Cup, and if you're unfamiliar with the Ryder Cup, it's essentially a team version of golf. It is usually between two teams, an American team and in this case a European team, and they pick a number of people to represent each country or each side, and they play match play, which is different than stroke play. And they compete with some pride on the line for the country or the continent that they represent. It can be very entertaining. It's a real different type of golf. You know, when you compare it to some other forms of golf that you see. You think about the Masters, and you think about the Open, and and all these different golf tournaments that make up the majors, and even the ones that aren't major. You can turn on golf and just see, essentially it's individuals competing not just with other golfers, but with themselves too, to a particular degree. It's a sport that is rooted in gentlemanly behavior, good sportsmanship. You can think back to a lot of incidents over the history of golf where a very courageous act of sportsmanship was kind of memorialized. It's really and it is exciting. Don't get me wrong. You think about Tiger Woods and how he kind of burst onto the scene, and it's just a different game compared to the traditional major team sports of things, especially in North America, such as baseball, football, basketball, hockey, etc. All right, so it's just a different animal. And if you were watching any part of the Ryder Cup this year, here in 2025, you may have noticed that the fan behavior really got kind of messy, kind of out of hand a little bit. And I did a little bit of research on it, from what I had researched and seen and experienced and whatnot. And I pulled up a nice article here from Golf Monthly. And that in this particular event, the USA team really got trounced, especially when you look at the early rounds and whatnot. It wasn't that good. All right. But when you look at some of the behavior, it got pretty ugly, and it kind of boiled over on the course as well. Players, caddies, and even vice captains were kind of going at it internally, like on the course. It is. I feel like it's kind of just ridiculous to come out and just say, "Oh, it sucked." I'm trying to find the best way to describe it in a way that kind of either compares it to past behavior or puts it within a context. In this article from Golf Monthly, it kind of starts off that says, let's get one thing straight. Nobody wants a Ryder Cup with a placid crowd. The Ryder Cup, because of the change to it, it becomes a much more lively event. Okay, I think we can kind of accept that for what it is. It is a different type of golf event. Okay. It's the problem is that as it continues in this article, it says here, quote, however, one huge caveat is to that is the etiquette of the game must be respected, and the line between common decency and outright hooliganism should never be crossed. It was held at Bethpage Black, which I can't say fast. And when you see the curse words that were being hurled, especially at the European team, when you realize that one of the MCs actually had to step down because I believe she was encouraging and participating in some of those chants, things about wife and family. It was, weight jokes. I mean, it was the number of posts from X, from media members, etc. It really went on to see like, it's not about having thick skin. It's just about, common decency. You can kind of go through, the posts from people to say like this is just kind of maddening, and when you look at how this kind of happens within sports in general, you start to wonder, did this originate somewhere? Is there a catalyst to it? It's a little tough to say because I think you could make cogent arguments in various different places and whatnot. Like you kind of look out there at some of the other sports and how that has evolved over the years. Baseball has had this kind of let the kids play campaign that almost gives a permission slip to allow people to kind of roll back on the etiquette. Football, I love this line from the movie Basketball, where they basically say like football became more about the celebration after the touchdown than about the game itself. Basketball has become this soap opera, on the court, and hockey obviously tacitly encourages fighting. So we have really kind of gotten to a point where you almost wonder if this was inevitable. Do you wonder, like, is this something like that was bound to happen in a post-Happy Gilmore world? I don't know, because I feel like, I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to introduce that into the argument, because that is supposed to be a work of fiction. It's supposed to be a hilarious take on the game of golf. It's supposed to be kind of like a fictional premise of what happens if we were to allow this, etc. And it became a classic movie. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we look at that and we think, wow, this is amazing. It spawned a sequel how many years later? But now, are we at a point where we take that too far? One wonders, is this because the Ryder Cup was held in New York? Where New York has a particular reputation. And, you think about the reputation that various regional fans have in America. There's always this rivalry sometimes between New York and Philadelphia. For every New York fan that I encounter, they're always going to say, geez, well, at least we're not Philly fans. That's the rhetoric. It's a really unfortunate thing that we're now kind of like comparing ourselves as if to say, well, at least we're not that, rather than giving a, like a reasonable response or taking ownership of poor behavior. golf did do something, or I'm sorry, the European team did do something here in that, although it was, as they say here, although it was a rough week for them, they kind of shut them up because of their performance. I've always preached that the best revenge in those situations is to get the W. You go out and win, and you let the scoreboard do the talking for you. It's just sad, is the way I can really coin it. It's sad that we have evolved to this. It's sad that we accept this. And I really wish that whatever the reason, because again, we could go on various different tangents, looking at different topics, almost like a dissertation, to figure out, well, how did we get to this point here in the Ryder Cup for this to happen? We're not going to waste our time doing that. Rather, we want to focus on what is happening and how we can do better. It's as simple as saying, this was horrific, and we just, in general, need to do better. We need to consider things like, is this the type of behavior that we will continue to allow, not just in golf, but in all sports? Is it location? If we were to hold, this tournament in places that were not New York, would we have the similar results? Are there various factors that go into this, maybe from the political arena? Are there various factors that come in from social arenas? Like what is it that drives this right now? Is it because of the timing, where, if it's being held in New York and you look at other New York sports, you try and factor in the Yankees and the Mets and the Giants and the Jets, and, do fans suddenly use the angst and the emotion from those sports into cheering for, the Americans in the Ryder Cup this way? It causes one to take a step back and wonder a lot of this stuff. And all I can say with any certainty is that, the Europeans took way too much garbage this way. There's an ESPN article about it where after the Europeans won, they kind of went on to admonish the fan behavior and whatnot. And Rory McIlroy was doing a lot of talking in his post-game or his post-match press conference. He has said things like, I don't think we should ever accept that in golf. I don't think we should ever accept that in golf. I think golf should be held to a higher standard than what was seen out there this week. He was very complimentary of the police, but there was a lot of language that was unacceptable and abusive behavior. It looks like there's a report 2 people were thrown off the course, according to a New York State police spokesperson, and the PGA of America added security to the group and increased fan behavior warning signs. Looks like, let's see here. Justin Thomas said, quote, Cam Young and I said it to Shane and Rory yesterday that we felt for them. It was unfortunate. Cam and I just wish that we gave them something to cheer for instead of people to cheer against. I think that was kind of the main consensus of the last 2 days, that we weren't giving them enough to cheer for, and they were just trying to help us win. I guess that's New York fans for you. Okay, so here the argument is, if the American golfers are not going to play well, the fans think it's in their wheelhouse to say, all right, well, we got to will them to win by making the other team feel like garbage. That is essentially like some sort of home field advantage thing, where you're supposed to, have a factor in that. And that, to me, is poor sportsmanship. You want to, you can create a positive home field advantage simply by cheering for your team. You don't get to influence the crowd the other way, because statistics have shown that, there are certain times where we think it might help, but it's not a foregone conclusion. It's not like 100% of the time, the home team wins. It's not even 90% of the time the home team wins. It's going more and more back to the median. So home field advantage is becoming a little bit more of a myth than anything else. All right. Looks like other reports say that a video on social media showed Lowry having to be held back by his caddy as the fan said something before McIlroy hit a drive Saturday. Another video showed McIlroy walking with his wife Erica when a beer appeared to be thrown in their direction and hit her. It just, even McIlroy said he told a fan to shut the blank up. It's just sad. I'm not even sure how else to describe it. It is just sad. I wish that more people, especially those who were there, saw this as kind of a call to action to say, you know what, you want to have a little bit of a different atmosphere at the Ryder Cup, fine. You want to treat it a little bit differently, fine. Please do not take it to that extreme. And unfortunately, we did that. It's not good. Say what you want about the traditions of golf, the traditions of sport in general. We are losing them. We are losing the battle to keep respect in our athletic competitions and even our non-athletic competitions, especially here in America. And I just wish that we had some way of trying to reel these people in and just say, can you not do this? And they wonder why. I'll kind of end with this. Maybe the issue is that the sane people decide, with the astronomical prices and with the behavior that's out there, I'd rather watch this stuff on TV with my big screen, my big flat screen in my living room where I have easy access to the refrigerator and the bathroom, and it's just not worth the hassle and the cost. And that allows other people who would probably not be held up to standard to get there and to behave this way. Who knows? I kind of file that under another, rabbit hole that we could dissect and going down another dissertation with that, but it's not worth it. It's just sad is what it is. It's just sad. I really wish that this type of behavior was not allowed. And I just hope that, for those who are listening, that you take a moment to kind of reflect on where in those types of situations we can all, strive to set the better example. We have the power to do that. We have the power to set the example through our own actions. And rather than shame people, rather than, kind of talk down to people like I'm some sort of preacher, I'd rather people, listen to this and think, hey, you know what? We as individuals have the ability and perhaps the responsibility to set the example and to be the better person and allow our actions to speak for themselves. So I hope everyone kind of takes that and runs with it a little bit. It'll be another little while before we have to deal with the Ryder Cup again, and I highly doubt we will be seeing it right back in the same course where maybe New York fans will be that way. But until then, please make sure that you check us out online at osipfoundation.org, podcast at osipfoundation.org, Facebook.com/OSIP X and Instagram at OSIP Foundation, hashtag how you play the game. We'll talk to everybody in just a few short weeks, and until then, treat each other with respect. How You Play the Game is a production of the OSIP Foundation, Incorporated. The producer-engineer of this episode is Sean Ryan. Music by Soundspring Studio. The executive producer of How You Play the Game is Jack Furlong. For more information, visit osipfoundation.org.